as we brace for the release of Spiritforged in the West and murmurs of concern about the League of Draven grow louder and louder, I want to take a look at tournament stats from this past month. 219 tournaments to be exact, for both Origins and Spiritforged. And I'll be doing that in the hopes of showing you a clear, non-alarmist picture of what both metas look like, what you might expect in your local summoner skirmishes or, I don't know, city challenges if you're playing in China, and to answer a secret question that captured my interest. I'm Simon from Games Deconstructed, and let's get started. So, first of all, let's take a look at overall legend representation in these past 30 days. I will mostly be using top cut representation as my metric here, as data reliability for these tournaments varies a little bit. In most cases, it's up to tournament organizers or even players themselves to update the events with the decklists that were played in them on sites like riftdex.com, which, by the way, I would wholeheartedly recommend you visit to check out these decks yourself. I cannot oversell how vital riftdex.com is for any sort of metagame analysis like I do here. As such, we rarely have access to the entire field for most of these tournaments like we would have with certain bigger ones like regionals, so we will have to rely on top 8 representation and below. That's going to be the most reliable data that we have. So looking at overall top 8 representation for Origins meta, we have arrived at what I would comfortably describe as a 3-deck format. These 3 decks being Kai'Sa, Annie, and Master Yi in that order. It's a similar picture if we look at top 4 or top 2 stats. The top 3 deck concentration increases very slightly as we approach the top, as they constitute just below 60% of top 8s, but 65% of top 4s, and 2/3 or 66% of all top 2s. Interestingly, Victor is the 4th most represented, even in tournament finals, even in the top 2s. This is undoubtedly in some part due to it being a very budget deck, so there's a lot of people playing it, especially at local level, but it seems like it's able to take wins in these events, even though its conversion rate might be a bit on the lower side, if I were to hazard a guess. Compared to last month, the biggest change here is definitely the rise in Annie's popularity. Back then, she was competing with Yi for the number 2 deck spot, and she has won that competition since. Since Yi's representation remains steady, the extra Annie representation likely came as a result of certain players abandoning Kai'Sa, whose representation dropped by nearly 10 points. Alternatively, it might be new players joining the game, making a decision of what the current best deck is and feeling emboldened to choose Annie after her victory in Houston. Not to pat myself on the back too hard, but let's see what my predictions were in last month's video, post-Houston. Expectations for December are that you'll see a bit more players experimenting with Annie and Misfortune in your locals, though I don't see that many players abandoning Master Yi or Kai'Sa if they've already been playing those decks. I don't see these meta swings being too drastic, to be perfectly honest with you, because both of these decks, MF and Annie, that have the possibility of becoming flavor of the month, are rather limited by card pricing and availability. So the one prediction that was slightly off the mark was the expected increase in MF's popularity. But if we filter down to just the bigger events, 32 players and above, we see that beyond the 71% of top 8s taken by the big 3, MF becomes the undisputed number 4. So people did bring her out for bigger events, just not so much at local level, which I feel makes perfect sense. Like, Aurora is a bit of a risky investment in light of what we've seen from Spiritforged, so I wouldn't expect players who just play at Nexus Knight level, even very decent players at Nexus Knight level, to make that investment. Victor also falls off considerably in this category, suggesting that the Victor victories, or victories, but you know, with a K, came about mostly at Nexus Knight and smaller Summoner Skirmish level. Now, let's get to the big stuff. Is China in a Tier 0 format? Is Draven the boogeyman that YouTube thumbnails would like you to believe he is? Let's see and find out. Right, so the big man currently represents about 26% of all top 8s across the 107 tournaments played either in China or Spiritforged tournaments played online. He's followed by the all-faithful Kai'Sa at 16.4 and Irelia, a known fan favorite, at 11.4. These top 3 decks make up about 54% of the top 8s in the current meta. They are followed by a smattering of 5% decks in Victor the Budget King, Azir, and Master Yi. As we climb the ranks towards tournament finals, it's a similar story to Origins. The top 3 decks increased their meta share slightly, with about 58% of top 2s made up of the Spiritforged Big 3. Now, since both these formats are 3-deck formats as of now, we can compare the meta variety we see in Origins compared to Spiritforged. And let me tell you this, at every level, from top 8 to top 2, the Origins Big 3 take a bigger slice of the pie than the Spiritforged Big 3. On a related note, Kai'Sa, and that's post-Houston Kai'Sa, has more of a stranglehold on the Origins format than Draven does on Spiritforged. Keep that in mind the next time you hear somebody calling for an emergency ban of the deck before it's even been released in the West. And remember, the fact that these best decks place so highly is not just owed to the pure strength of the cards in them, but also to the fact that the top players are more likely to play them. Out of all the decks that are available, the best players who are going to place highly no matter what deck they're playing, are most likely to gravitate towards what's perceived as the best deck in the meta, which creates kind of a feedback loop effect that brings those decks to even higher placements. Now, one other thing that sparked my interest is seeing which battlefields are played in Spiritforged. Cause battlefields are a bit of a curious deck building consideration in Riftbound. You will always have to play 3 unique ones, and the pool of them available is quite small compared to other card types. So which ones you put in your deck is going to be a hugely impactful decision that you will eventually have to revisit when a new expansion comes out. And due to the limited pool of them we had in Origins, there was a bit of a power discrepancy between the same deck on their best battlefield and the same deck on their worst battlefield. So here's every battlefield question you might want answered based on all the Spiritforged decks in our list. Out of the top 5 most played battlefields, 3 are Origins classics: Dreaming Tree, Targon's Peak, and Reverse Row, with the 2 new inclusions being Ravenbloom Conservatory and Treasure Hoard. All 39 battlefields still play somewhere, though the differences in popularity here are quite stark. To illustrate, for every player that played the least popular battlefield, Navori Fighting Pit, there's 153 players who played the most popular one, Dreaming Tree. The top battlefields generally owe their popularity to being played in multiple decks and at least 1 or 2 of the top tier ones. The Dreaming Tree is a good example here. It's played by nearly every Irelia deck on our list, and equally popular in Ahri, which has a slightly lower meta share, but it's also seen as a good inclusion in 60% of Yasuo decks, nearly half of Annie decks, about 40% of Fiora and Kai'Sa decks, and often a consideration in a number of others. There's 11 legends for which Dreaming Tree was played by at least 15% of the lists that we have for those legends, really showcasing the battlefield's versatility. Most of the top battlefields on our list follow that pattern, with the exception of the 7th most popular, Voidgate. This one is kind of the opposite scenario. It owes its ability to outperform Navori Fighting Ring to its near-total inclusion in a single deck, Kai'Sa. It's occasionally been tested out in Ezreal as well, but let's not kid ourselves. The reason why it's here is Kai'Sa. And of course that is notable because Kai'Sa's a popular deck, but there's a number of other battlefields that support a more specific mechanic than just drawing cards or targeting your own units, and they are very much in the same boat. For example, Bundle Tree is only realistically played in Teemo, though I have played a version of Draven that also played it and multiple hidden cards, and it did rock. But another example could be Hall of Legends and Azir, Candlelit Sanctum and Rek'Sai, and the last one is a bit of a fun one, cause in Origins I would very much consider Candlelit Sanctum a generically okay battlefield. It did see play in multiple decks and it was nobody's favorite in none of them. Any of them? Double negatives are confusing. But now that Rek'Sai is being printed, they found a perfect match it seems, while other lists that would previously consider it as their third favorite battlefield would find more fitting replacements with Spiritforged. Overall, around 62% of the battlefields played are from Origins, while 38% are from Spiritforged. Considering there's 24 to choose from in Origins and 15 in the new set, I think that speaks to an achievement on the design team's part. Because we are seeing new cards, but not only new cards, on the battlefield's front at least. Right, let's move on to conclusions then, but before we do, if you're enjoying the video thus far, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps with growing it, and I will be very grateful. Thank you so much, and let's get on with it. My expectations for January is that the Origins meta is not going to shift too drastically. If you're headed to a Summoner Skirmish or even a Nexus Knight, you need to have a game plan for Kai'Sa, Master Yi, and Annie. If it's a smaller scale tournament, probably also Victor. If it's a bit bigger, MF Aurora. As for Spiritforged, I genuinely believe that Draven is not as bad for the metagame as everyone seems to think. Don't get me wrong, he is absolutely going to be one of the top 2 decks after the meta has stabilized, and we will probably see some scary looking swings in the meantime. We might get a weekend of CT challenges where Draven's like 40% of top 8s, but that's just the way these early metas shape up. And I'm gonna make an even spicier prediction. I think Draven's not going to win Bologna. I think people are hiding some crazy tech for that event, and we are all going to be impressed and surprised by what it is. If you're watching this in the future, you can let me know in the comments if I've been correct on this or fully off the mark. Let me know in the comments if you're enjoying this video format, if there's any other metagame factors that you would like for me to take a look at, because I very much intend for this to improve month by month, and it is very much going to be a monthly occurrence. Thanks a lot for watching, and a special thank you to the Patreon supporters over on patreon.com/gamesdeconstructed, and a special thank you to Jakub Burdun, Dillinger, and Anna Schultz. I've been Simon from Games Deconstructed, and I hope to see you in the next one.